young girl from Hong Kong, 9 years old, went on one of the world's scariest stages. When she picked up the microphone and spoke, she shut down a room full of thousands of strangers. Each and every judge said yes. A well-known guest hit the golden buzzer so hard that confetti fell from the ceiling. More than 42 million people watched her online. She suddenly became a child star. But viral fame is just what everyone saw. The internet played the fairy tale moment a million times, but there's a much more difficult story behind it, and one thing about her father that almost ruined everything. A lot of people didn't even notice it. The scariest thing is that the signs were there from the start. There was a lot of debate at the start. The dispute that no one saw coming. Something else was going on in the background while Celine performed for millions of people and got golden buzzers. It was a story about her father. Steve Tam didn't sneak into the public conversation. During the AGT run, Celine's visibility shot through the roof, and so did Steve's. He called himself Dr. Steve Tam in public, which made it sound like he had academic credentials in the field he was working in. When Hong Kong media started looking more closely at that credential after Celine's big hit, it brought up some uncomfortable questions. Steve Tam did not have any kind of music or vocal training. His PhD was in business administration from a university in the Philippines. People began to wonder if the doctor title was appropriate since he was presenting himself as a professional singing coach and music expert after this information became public. Steve talked about it in public and said that he had used the name Dr. Steve for a headhunting business before he opened a singing school and that he had never said directly that he had a PhD in music. He said he was sorry if the title had caused any misunderstanding. There was a lot of trouble over his qualifications as a start. Not long after Selena's audition for American Idol went viral, Steve Tam announced that his own record would be out soon. A lot of people thought the timing was odd. Online fans and critics of Celine said that Steve was using his daughter's fame to start his own career. They called him a stage parent who was using his 9-year-old daughter's ability to get attention for himself. His daughter was being treated like a money tree was a phrase that was used a lot on social media. More research showed that Steve's professional website's list of singing awards and accomplishments had dates and event names that didn't match up with records that could be checked. When Steve was told about these mistakes, he said they were just because he couldn't remember what had happened 20 to 30 years ago. He talked about how people couldn't expect him to remember every single detail about competitions that happened decades ago. An important person from Hong Kong named Nancy Sit Kayan made the most damaging charge. Nancy Sit openly accused Steve Tam of stealing her students, which means he got them from somewhere else by doing something wrong. In public statements, Nancy Sit called him an immoral person with bad intentions. This was a big claim given her reputation in Hong Kong's entertainment industry. Steve Tam apologized to Nancy Sit personally at the event where he launched his new album and announced his new music project. He also promised to give any money he got from the dispute to charity. Celine kept her mind on her work, kept acting, and told everyone that she loved what she was doing. But the problems her father had caused had become a part of her story in ways that made it hard to separate them from the real accomplishments she had made on stage. As a child, Celine Tam had a voice that people weren't ready for. Celine Tam Troswan was born in Hong Kong, China, on November 22, 2007. She grew up in a home where music was all the time. Steve Tam, her father, was a singing teacher who ran vocal studios and had built his career by teaching young performers for many years. Jia Ming Shan, her mother, took care of the family while Steve ran his music business. Celine and her younger sister were both named after well-known Canadian singer Celine Dion. A small thing that tells us something about the kind of home they grew up in before they could sing a word. When Celine was 3 years old, her father began giving her formal singing classes. Steve Tam has told the story of how it all began many times in public. While she was in the car, a very young Celine began singing the famous Celine Dion song, "My Heart Will Go On." Steve could only manage one word when he heard how good her singing was. Wow! He said that was the moment when he knew his daughter had something very special. He went home, talked to his wife, and made a choice that would change their whole family life from then on. Celine had already been acting live in front of real people by the time she was 4. Not just family events or school functions, but also public shows that put her voice and nerves to the test at a time when most kids are still learning how to tie their shoes. In 2017, Celine Tam became known to most people through America's Got Talent. But by the time she walked on stage, she had been performing professionally for 5 years and was well known in some parts of Asia. Celine, then 5 years old, sang a song by Secret Garden called You Raise Me Up in a contest in China called Let's Sing Kids. Chinese TV viewers learned about her talent from that show, which set off a wave of attention that grew quickly. She sang Let It Go from the movie Frozen at the Shanghai Love concert in 2014, when she was only 6 years old. She shared the stage with pop singer Sheila Amsa and a huge crowd watched. A duet she did with a boy named Jeffrey Lee in 2015 was the first video that really went popular around the world. The two young singers did You Raise Me Up together on the TV show Little Big Shots. The video clip has been seen hundreds of millions of times on the internet. Both kids were singing a song that was meant for adult voices on a stage that was way too big for them. The combination of their ability and innocence made it almost impossible to watch without being moved. After the duet, Jeffrey Lee would go on America's Got Talent Season 13 with the same stage that the duet had given both of them. At this time, Celine was also competing in international events. Her first time on Britain's Got Talent was in 2015, when she was only 8 years old. Even though her interview wasn't shown on TV, she made it past the first round before being kicked out for reasons that were never fully explained in public. She learned something important from that event. There are times when performers don't get the ending they deserve, even on the biggest stages. When she got back to Hong Kong and China, people started calling her Little Giant Lung. The sound that came from her small body didn't fit the person who was making it. There were many people who said that seeing her act live was truly shocking. The kind of mismatch between sound and sight that makes people stare and then stand up right away. Celine won 8 singing competitions in 1 year before she was 9 years old. Her appearance on national Chinese TV was well known. At events in several countries, she had already been through what it was like to compete at the highest levels of international talent shows and not make it through. People in the United States who watched Season 12 of America's Got Talent couldn't see any of that. They only saw a little girl with a big voice. It was a lot trickier to tell the whole story. The night Celine Tam shut down a whole theater. On America's Got Talent in 2017, 9-year-old Celine Tam walked out on stage and looked like the smallest person who had ever been there. People in Los Angeles' Dolby Theater were excited before she even sang a note. When Simon Cowell, Mel B, Heidi Klum, and Howie Mandel watched from the judges' table, they looked cautious, like judges on talent shows do when they aren't sure if what they are about to hear will be amazing or heartbreaking. She then opened her mouth. It was called My Heart Will Go On. The same Celine Dion ballad that played on the stereo in her dad's car 6 years ago when he heard her voice for the first time and realized that things had to change. The notes that came out did not sound like a child trying to sing an adult song. They were exact, strong, and emotionally honest in a way that most young singers fail to achieve. People stood up before the song even got to the middle. Right away, all 4 judges voted yes. It is well known that Simon Cowell is the judge who is least likely to show emotion. However, he was seen reacting with real surprise. Mel B looked like she was moved. Heidi Klum was up and moving before the last note finished. There was no hesitation when Howie Mandel joined them. Everyone in the audience was on their feet the whole time. Celine got all of the yes votes and moved on to the judge cuts round. As soon as the video was posted to the official AGT YouTube page, the number of views jumped at a rate that the production team had never seen from a single audition before. When that audition tape was put online, it went viral almost right away. The video was seen tens of millions of times in just a few weeks. It had over 42 million views by the end of 2017, making it Hong Kong's most watched YouTube movie of the year. This video got more than 40 times as many views as any of her competitors in the same group. That fact makes the response to that one performance even bigger than it should have been. After making it to the Judge Cuts round, they sang "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You" by Michael Bolton. There was a guest judge in front of Celine Tam, and they were about to change the course of her race. The actor and activist Laverne Cox, who was a guest judge for that round, saw Celine perform. Everyone in the room was moved and applauded the show over and over again. The golden buzzer was pressed by Laverne Cox. A lot of gold confetti fell from the sky. The crowd went crazy. Celine went straight to the quarterfinals without going through the normal process of being eliminated. At that moment, she broke Angelica Hale's record as the youngest solo contestant in the show's history to get a golden bell. In the quarterfinals, Celine sang the powerful duet by Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey called "When You Believe" by herself. Heidi Klum cheered her on from the stage. She made it to the semi-finals because of the judge's choice. Celine Tam was only 9 years old. She was still standing during the live rounds of the most watched talent show in the United States. "How Far I'll Go" from the animated movie Moana was the performance in the semi-finals. The song was right for her voice and age, and she did a great job with the delivery. Sheila Klum stood up again. Even though she got a lot of cheers, the choices from the judges were not enough to send her to the finals. Celine Tam's journey on America's Got Talent ended in the semi-finals, one round away from the stage, which is where careers take off and stay there. The outcome was disappointing, but not terrible. When she was 9, she was from Hong Kong and made it to the semi-finals. She sang in her second language for people who had never heard of her before the summer of 2017. But the next part of the story was about to become a lot more complex than a simple elimination. The message that linked Celine Dion and Celine Tam. While everyone was talking about how controversial her father was, something happened that made everyone remember what was really important about Celine Tam's story. Celine Tam put up a message on her social media on September 14, 2017 that the note was sent to the famous singer after whom she was named. It said, "No matter how far I'll go, my heart will go on." She also said she hoped one day she could sing with Celine Dion in real life, not just in her dreams. After 6 days, Celine Dion herself shared the message again. In her answer, Celine Dion said that Celine Tam had done a great job on the show and directly invited Celine Tam and her family to be special guests at one of her Las Vegas residency shows. One of the most beautiful parts of this story was that moment. A personal message of congratulations was sent directly from the legend herself to a 9-year-old girl named after her and who had spent her whole life singing that legend's most famous songs. The girl had just performed the most famous song that legend had ever recorded on the biggest talent show in America. That moment was all about the music and what it can do when the right voice finds the right song, no matter what else was going on in the story. When America's Got Talent run finished in the summer of 2017, Celine Tam went through something that a lot of child performers go through after getting a lot of attention all of a sudden. Almost number 9-year-old is ready to answer the question of what will happen next and how to deal with it on their own. After the show, there were a lot of appearances, requests, and chances right away. Celine was the most famous young artist in Hong Kong. That year, her audition video got more views on YouTube than any other Hong Kong video. People kept inviting her to events and asking her to perform at business meetings and private shows. She was also constantly being recognized in public. She agreed to cut the ribbon and show off clothes at the launch party for Mona Lisa, an Italian fashion brand. She spoke and made public appearances. But people around her could tell that the intense attention was hard for a child who also had to go to school, spend time with her family, and just be a kid, which was getting harder as she became more famous. During this time, people were talking in public about whether kids should be able to compete on America's Got Talent at all. Some people in the entertainment business said that the pressure on young competitors was too much and that there should be an age limit. In response to this conversation, Celine spoke up. She said that anyone of any age should be able to enter talent shows if they really have something good to offer. She also said that she wouldn't make her younger sister Dion compete, but she would help her with singing if that's what Dion wanted to do. That answer stood out because it came from a 9-year-old who had seen both the best and worst of what a big TV network can do to a child performer. She still thought the chance was worth taking. She just had a different understanding of it than she did before she went on stage. Celine Tam's sudden return to the world stage. In 2019, Celine Tam made a choice that surprised a lot of people who thought her competitive performing days might be over after being out of big competitions for almost 2 years. She competed in World's Got Talent, a global singing competition shown on Hunan TV in China. It brought together the best singers from other Got Talent shows around the world. Stress like this wasn't like AGT stress. A huge number of people from all over Asia watched. The performers who were competing were some of the best from different foreign versions of the Got Talent franchise. One of the songs Celine sang was an original piece she wrote called Who I Am. This was a big change that wasn't talked about much in the news about the event. There was a time on America's Got Talent when Celine talked about writing song words and music. At the time, the comment didn't get much attention because people were more interested in how she sang well-known songs. If Celine Tam went on World's Got Talent with a song she wrote herself, it was a statement about who she was as an artist. Besides the girl who sang Celine Dion songs when she was 9 years old. One of the judges on World's Got Talent pressed the golden buzzer because they liked the song and the act so much. Once more, the confetti fell. Celine Tam got a golden buzzer twice in her life, on 2 different versions of the Got Talent franchise. She was the first person from Hong Kong and China to get that exact mix of results. Along with that, she was the youngest contestant in the history of World's Got Talent. She got into the top 8, but not the top 2, with the final score. Another race, and another close call at the very top. What the 2 golden buzzers did show, though, was that they were consistently great on 2 different world stages, in 2 different languages, and with 2 very different performance styles. Celine Tam showed a side of herself in the years after World's Got Talent that she had never really had a chance to show on stage. Celine released a picture book for kids called Harper with the help of a writer named Peter On. It wasn't just an ego project for the famous person. It had a specific message that Celine personally believed in deeply. Harper talks about what it's like to be bullied and how important it is to not let other people's dislike ruin your own happiness. Celine had talked about the subject in public with real emotion, using her stage to talk directly to young readers who might be going through the same things the book talked about. Room to Read is a non-profit group that was started in 2000 to promote literacy and gender equality in low-income areas of Asia and other parts of the world. She became an ambassador for the group. The news was made public in November 2020. As an ambassador for Room to Read, Celine promised to take part in activities that raise knowledge and money. She gave for Room to Read donors in a virtual performance. She said that she had to learn to read before she could learn her first song. Being able to read and love books had helped her follow her dreams. She talked about how proud she was to help millions of kids around the world dream about their own futures. Celine was accepted into the University of Hong Kong's Academy for the Talented when she was 14 years old. This is a prestigious program that finds and helps young people with exceptional skills in many areas. When she was accepted, she joined a small group of people that the university thought had potential that went beyond what normal educational paths were meant to grow. She also talked in public about ocean issues, conservation, and environmental issues, and she was often seen working on projects that raised awareness about these issues. Along with continuing to work on her singing, she was learning to play the guitar. She told people about books on social media. At a time when many performers her age were only interested in making people laugh, she stayed truly interested in education. The comic book, the humanitarian ambassadorship, the university program, and the environmental advocacy all came together to show that the young person had chosen to use the platform that my heart will go on built for her to do things that were important to her outside of the spotlight. What did Celine Tam do after she was in the spotlight? As of November 2024, Celine Tam was 17 years old. The girl who had been 9 years old on the AGT stage had changed a lot since then. 42 million people had watched her act as a child. They had moved to California with their family. Celine was going to Beacon Hill School in Pacific Palisades and playing music while also doing well in school. By the time she was in her mid-teens, she was said to have a net worth of about $1 million from performances, concerts, brand endorsements, and foreign TV contracts she had earned over a decade of public speaking. She kept in touch with her sister Dion, who had also been singing in public. As always, she loved watching cartoons, drawing, going to the beach, and eating ice cream. She was getting better at badminton, swimming, and climbing. She had plans to get a cat. Those details don't sound like the shape of a star. They sound like the typical teen trying to be a teen, which is exactly the problem that every child who becomes famous too quickly has to deal with at some point. The business is made for adults. Schedules, public appearances, being seen all the time, financial decisions, and the way things are run are all not based on what a child actually needs. It was still not clear what part Steve Tam played in all of this. He had been accused of exploiting people in public and had publicly apologized and promised to do better. He released a record when his daughter was at the top of her game. He had given references that were more about what they said they were about than what they actually applied to his work. Also, he saw his daughter's talent when she was 3 years old and spent years training her. He also traveled the world with her and was always there for her, on and off the stage. The people who are closest to the situation have never given a clear answer to the question of whether that mix is loving parenting, smart management, or a difficult mix of the two. They probably never will. It is clear that Celine has always said she loves what she does, is dedicated to her craft, and wants to use her voice for things other than her own personal gain, even when things have gone wrong. People who work with kids on stage have stories like Celine Tam's all the time. And that pattern is exactly what makes it important to look at carefully. Child artists have to deal with a lot of stress that adult performers never have to. Before a normal childhood is over, people feel like they have to be extraordinary. A child is judged by the world before they are old enough to understand what that term means. Child psychology study has shown over and over that when a child makes a lot of money and gets a lot of attention, things get more complicated in the family. The parent is the boss, the coach, and the main decision maker. This is a role with no clear boundaries and a lot of room for conflict. Celine Tam dealt with all of these problems in public, starting when she was 9 years old. Millions of people watched and thought about her, her father, and her future before she even finished elementary school. The 4 judges on American Idol stood up. Celine Dion herself sent one from Las Vegas to cheer them up. Hong Kong praised her like she was a national hero. After getting 42 million views in just 1 year, everyone knew what she did was real and wonderful. Celine Tam did something that many child performers in similar situations don't manage to do. She kept going through the second golden buzzer, the illustrated book, the Room to Read ambassadorship, and the University of Hong Kong program. There were questions about her credentials and motivations, and she went from being a child star to a teenager. She didn't change. Aside from not being seen in public, she didn't try to become famous at the cost of everything else. She took her education very seriously. She became interested in things other than music. She wrote a book about being nice. It was her job to speak up for kids who didn't have the same chances she did. She kept singing, kept competing, and kept coming up with new ways to use the voice that stopped people in Los Angeles when she was 9 years old. Celine Tam's life now that she's out of the spotlight. Celine Tam is 17 years old now. The girl who sang My Heart Will Go On 2017's America's Got Talent has been singing in public for more than 10 years. The 42 million plus views of the audition video is still one of the most watched clips in the history of the Got Talent series. With 2 golden buzzers, one from America's Got Talent and one from World's Got Talent, she is one of only a few performers to have done that on more than one foreign version of the show. There were real problems with her father, and they made people wonder about the morality of working with child performers and the duties that come with having a child who makes money and respect at a very young age. The answers to those questions were never completely clear, and only the family knows for sure what was mostly about business and what was mostly about parenting. There is no doubt about the voice. When a father was driving with his 3-year-old daughter, he heard a voice that he knew was too important to ignore. Before anyone else knew who Celine Tam was, this voice won 8 titles in a single year. For experienced judges were stunned by the voice in the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles on a summer evening in 2017. The sound so strange that 42 million people went online to find out what the fuss was about. Someone now owns that voice, not just a kid performer. At age 17, Celine Tam is making whatever comes next on her own terms. She has completed an academic program at the University of Hong Kong, written a children's book, been an ambassador for Room to Read, and worked as a professional for 10 years. She can still use the stage when she wants to. The voice is still really great. People all over the world are still interested in what a 9-year-old girl from Hong Kong does as an adult after singing Celine Dion's most famous song on American TV. When 9-year-old Celine Tam took the AGT stage, she put on a show that 42 million people will never forget. After that moment, things got harder, hurt more, and got better than most people ever thought possible. A father whose intentions were called into question. A girl who went on anyway. A voice that kept getting stronger. If you thought this told the whole story, click the like button and subscribe.